Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at the impact women have on society.
Okay.
And this is a request that we got from you guys.
Right.
You know, you wanted to explore this a little bit more deeply, and you sent in some really cool material on the topic.
Yeah.
And there was one quote that really seemed to resonate with you guys.
There was one quote that stood out in particular, and it's by Harriet Beecher Stowe.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, "Women are the real architects of society."
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, that one. And, it's one of those statements that seems really simple on the surface.
Right.
But when you start to think about it a little bit more deeply, it really has some profound implications.
I totally agree. And I was really struck by that word architect.
Uh-huh.
We tend to think of buildings and blueprints when we hear that word.
Yeah.
But what do you think she meant in a broader sense?
Well, I think what she was getting at is the way that women shape our values, our behaviors, even the way we interact with each other. It's a kind of influence that goes way beyond just the physical structures around us.
So it's not so much about, designing buildings,
right? Yeah.
But more about shaping the very foundation of society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think about it. Historically, women have always been right at the heart of, raising children.
Right.
Creating homes, nurturing communities.
Yeah.
These are like the building blocks of any society.
Right.
And Stowe, writing in the 1800s, was recognizing how significant these roles were even back then.
It's interesting because, during that time, women didn't hold a lot of formal power in society.
Right.
They couldn't vote.
Yeah.
They had limited property rights.
Uh-huh.
Yet Stowe saw their influence as absolutely central.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating contrast, isn't it? This idea that women were shaping minds and hearts.
Right.
Even while they were largely excluded from positions of, what we consider formal authority.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if that was true in the 1800s, how much more relevant is it today?
That's the question that I kept coming back to as I was thinking about this.
Right.
If women really are the architects of society, what does that mean for the world that we're living in now?
Right.
What kind of structures are being built?
Yeah.
And what role are women playing in that construction?
Yeah, and it feels like the scope of, that architect role has expanded so much, right?
Absolutely.
It's no longer just about, the home and the family.
Right.
But it's about shaping businesses.
Yeah.
Political systems.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yeah, think about all the fields that women are making their mark on today. Technology, finance, healthcare, the arts.
And
the list goes on and on.
It does.
And with that kind of expanded presence comes the potential for even greater impact on the shape of society itself.
And it makes you think about what those unique contributions might be.
Mm-hmm.
We often talk about qualities like empathy, collaboration, a nurturing instinct, being more prevalent in women.
Yeah.
Could these very qualities be what help shape a better future?
It's a really intriguing possibility when you look at the challenges that we're facing in the world today. Everything from climate change to social injustice.
Yeah.
They need solutions that go beyond those sort of like top-down hierarchical approaches.
Yes.
They need solutions that prioritize collaboration, compassion, long-term thinking.
And these are exactly the qualities that women have been honing for centuries.
Right.
Often behind the scenes or within those kind of like undervalued domestic spheres.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as women are stepping into more visible and influential roles, it raises this exciting question. Are we seeing a shift in the very blueprint of society?
Yeah.
Are we moving towards a model that prioritizes these more human-centered values?
That is such a good question, and that's one that I am so eager to explore further.
Yeah, me too.
But before we do, I think it would be great to take a closer look at the historical context.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to go next.
Okay.
Let's delve into how women have exerted their influence throughout history, even when they were facing, some pretty significant obstacles.
Do it.
Picking back up on Stowe's era, I think it's important to remember the limitations that women faced.
Right.
They were often confined to the domestic sphere.
Right.
Their contributions were often seen as less significant than men's work, especially in the public realm. Mm-hmm. But it was within those very spaces that they were shaping future generations. generations,
Yeah.
instilling values,
Right.
and really, building that foundation for a functioning society.
It almost seems counterintuitive.
It does.
His immense influence wielded from a position of limited power.
Yeah.
How do you think women were able to exert such a profound impact despite these restrictions?
I think it really speaks to the inherent power of those roles that they occupied. Motherhood, for example.
Yeah.
It's not just about raising children.
Right.
It's about shaping character, instilling empathy,
Right.
passing down traditions.
Yeah.
These are the threads that weave the fabric of society.
So it's almost like they were the architects of humanity itself,
Yeah.
shaping individuals who would go on to build the world around them.
Exactly.
Right.
And think about the communities that women created.
Yeah.
Networks of support,
Yeah.
sharing resources,
Yeah.
caring for the sick and elderly.
Right.
These were the pillars of social cohesion.
Yeah.
Long before, formal institutions took
Right.
on these roles.
It makes you realize that architect metaphor
Yeah.
goes far beyond just constructing, physical spaces.
Right.
It's about designing the very systems that hold society together.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of women as architects becomes so powerful. Because if we look at the challenges facing the world today, these breakdowns in communication,
Right.
the erosion of empathy,
Yeah.
the focus on individual gain
Yeah.
over collective well-being,
Right.
it seems like they all point to a need for a different kind of blueprint.
A blueprint that perhaps draws upon those very qualities that women have historically embodied.
Right.
Collaboration, compassion, a long-term perspective.
Exactly. And as women are increasingly breaking free from those traditional limitations,
Yeah.
stepping into leadership roles across all sectors, it raises a really fascinating question.
Right.
Can they bring those qualities to bear on a larger scale?
Right.
Can they reshape the systems themselves?
That's what I find so exciking about Stowe's quote.
Yeah.
It was not just a recognition of, historical influence,
Right.
but an invitation to imagine what's possible when women have a more equal seat at the table.
Absolutely. And I think we're already starting to see glimpses of that potential.
Yeah.
Women leaders are often praised for their collaborative approach,
Right.
their ability to build consensus, their focus on sustainability and social impact.
Yeah.
And, these aren't just anecdotal observations.
Right.
There's actually a growing body of research
Okay.
that supports the idea that diverse leadership, including women, leads to better outcomes.
That's encouraging to hear.
It is.
But let's be honest, there are still some huge obstacles to overcome.
Oh, absolutely.
We see these persistent inequalities
Yeah.
in pay, representation, opportunities.
Uh-huh.
How do we reconcile those realities
Right.
with this optimistic vision
Yeah.
of women architects building a better world?
That's a tension that we can't ignore.
Right.
The legacy of these systemic barriers is very real.
Yeah.
And it continues to limit, the full expression of women's leadership potential. But I think that's precisely why Stowe's quote is so important.
Okay.
It's a reminder that despite those limitations, women have always been shaping society.
Yeah.
And as those limitations begin to crumble,
Right.
the potential for transformation just becomes even greater.
So it's not just about celebrating the progress that's been made,
Right.
but also acknowledging the work that still needs to be done. It's about dismantling those remaining barriers.
Yeah.
And creating a world where women can truly flourish as architects.
Absolutely.
And in all their, diverse talents and perspectives.
I completely agree. And I think that brings us to a really crucial point.
Okay.
If we want to see those human-centered values reflected in the world around us, we have to go beyond simply putting women in positions of power.
Okay.
We have to re-examine the very structures and systems that shape our society.
So you're saying it's not enough to just have more women CEOs
Right.
or politicians.
Exactly.
We need to change the underlying framework itself.
We need to ask ourselves, what does a truly equitable and sustainable society look like?
Right.
What values does it prioritize? And how do we design systems that reflect those values?
That's a huge question.
It is.
And I don't think there's a simple answer,
No.
but it's a conversation we absolutely need to be having.
It's a conversation that Stowe's quote invites us into.
Yeah.
Because if women are indeed the architects of society,
Mm-hmm.
then we all have a role to play in shaping the blueprint.
It's not just about those in positions of formal authority.
Right.
It's about each of us contributing our talents,
Yeah.
our perspectives, and our actions towards building a world that reflects our shared values.
And that, I think, brings us back to you, the listener.
Because this isn't just a theoretical discussion. It's about how each of us lives out these ideas in our own lives.
If we want to see a world that prioritizes empathy,
Right.
collaboration, and sustainability, we have to start by embodying those values ourselves.
You know, it feels like we're talking about a real shift in perspective here.
Yeah.
Almost like a new way of thinking about leadership and influence.
I think that's a great way to put it. You know, we're so used to associating power with hierarchy, command and control.
Right.
But what if true power actually lies in connection, collaboration, the ability to empower others?
It's a very different model.
It is.
And one that feels much more in line with, qualities that we often attribute to women.
And it's not to say that these are qualities that are exclusive to women.
Of course.
But it is interesting to think about how those traditionally feminine values might be precisely what's needed to address these really complex challenges that we're facing.
It makes you wonder if we've been undervaluing those very qualities for far too long.
Yeah.
Both in women and in society as a whole.
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, we've built systems that reward competition, individualism, short-term gains. But what if we started designing systems that prioritize cooperation, empathy, a long-term vision?
It would be a pretty radical shift, wouldn't it?
It would.
Almost like rewiring the circuitry of our entire society.
Yeah, it would be a massive undertaking. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I think it starts with each of us.
Okay.
Examining our own beliefs and behaviors. Do we actually value collaboration over competition?
Right.
Do we prioritize empathy in our interactions? Are we willing to make sacrifices for the greater good?
Those are tough questions.
They are.
But essential ones if we're really serious about building a better future.
I agree.
It's not enough to just talk about these values we have to live them.
And that's where I find hope. In every corner of the world, there are women and men who are already living out these values. You know, they're building businesses that prioritize sustainability. They're creating communities that support each other. They're raising children who are taught to value compassion and collaboration.
It's like they're the pioneers, laying the groundwork for a new way of being in the world. And their efforts, however small they may seem, are contributing to a much larger shift in consciousness.
That reminds me of something Margaret Mead once said.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world.
Right.
Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has."
Wow.
And I think that applies perfectly here.
Right.
You know, change doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It happens through the cumulative efforts of individuals who just refuse to accept the status quo.
It's about having the courage to challenge those outdated systems, to speak up for what we believe in, and to actually embody those values in our daily lives.
I agree.
And that's something that each of us can do, regardless of, our gender, our background, our position in society.
And that's the beauty of Stowe's quote.
Yeah.
It's not a prescription for some utopia that's only designed by women. It's an invitation to really recognize the power that we all have to shape the world around us.
It's a call to action.
It is.
It's a reminder that we're all architects, each contributing to the blueprint of society in our own unique way.
And the choices we make, the values that we prioritize, those are the building blocks of the future that can be either more just and compassionate or more divided and unsustainable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
I
want to leave you with this question. What kind of architect do you want to be?
What kind of legacy will you leave on the world?
That is something to ponder.
It is.
And it's a question that deserves, our thoughtful consideration.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us on this journey of exploration. And until next time, keep building.
We rise from the shadows and dance in the light, unlocking our power, igniting the night. In this deep dive we find strength in our voice, every woman a leader with dreams and a choice. Stand tall and proud, we're we'll see. With passion we conquer, each mountain we climb, an unstoppable force in rhythm and rhyme. In this podcast we shine like stars on the rise, uniting our spirits, breaking the ties. Stand tall and proud, we're breaking the mold. With hearts full of fire, our stories get told. Together we soar on wings wide and free. The deep dive calls to you, come join and we'll see. We conquer, each mountain we climb, an unstoppable force in rhythm and rhyme. In this podcast we shine like stars on the rise, uniting our spirits, breaking the ties. Stand tall and proud, we're